I'm Jezreel from the Customer Success Team at Consultare Inc. Group. Today, we will be focusing on the Foreign Supplier Verification Programs or FSVP for food importers as required under 21 CFR Part 1, Subpart L. This program ensures that U.S. importers verify that their foreign suppliers are producing food in compliance with U.S. safety standards, specifically that imported products are not adulterated or misbranded and meet the same level of public health protection as foods manufactured domestically. We'll discuss the key responsibilities of FSVP importers, including hazard analysis, supplier evaluation and approval, verification activities, and record keeping. You'll also learn how these activities demonstrate compliance with FDA requirements and support the safe importation of food products into the U.S. By understanding the FSVP framework, you'll see how compliance not only helps you meet regulatory obligations, but also strengthens your credibility and market access as trusted importer. By the way, this free training session is sponsored by Consultare Inc. Group, a compliance company. Founded in 2007, we began by assisting businesses with U.S. import and export compliance and have since evolved into a global provider of food safety, quality, and certification support. Today, our services revolve around compliance management software, specialized training, and end-to-end support services that help organizations achieve and maintain compliance with international standards. Through our platform interlinkiq.com, we offer an integrated compliance management system that streamlines documentation, monitoring, and audit readiness. We also provide dedicated compliance and certification support programs for FSVP, PCQI, SQF, PRCGS, FSSC 22000, ISO 9001, GMP, and HACCP, helping businesses strengthen their regulatory compliance, enhance operational efficiency, and ensure alignment with global food safety and quality management standards. Over the next several weeks, we will be walking through the key components of the Foreign Supplier Verification Program, breaking them down into structured weekly sessions. Each week focuses on a specific program or requirement, starting today with the Products Program, which establishes the foundation for identifying, documenting, and verifying the products covered under your FSVP. This step-by-step approach will help you understand not only the regulatory requirements under 21 CFR Part 1 Subpart L, but also how to apply them effectively within your organization to ensure compliance, traceability, and readiness for FDA verification activities. In today's session, we will begin by familiarizing ourselves with the FSVP Section 1.501 Products Program, where we will discuss the purpose and the scope of the Foreign Supplier Verification Program and how it applies for food importers. We will then move on the description of FSVP requirements, outlining the key responsibilities of importers under 21 CFR Part 1 Subpart L, including supplier evaluation, verification activities, and record-keeping requirements. Next, we will go through the compliance action activities, which are the recurring tasks conducted on a daily, weekly, monthly, and semi-annual basis to maintain compliance on audit readiness. We will also cover the annual review and internal audit activities, which serve as essential checkpoints for ensuring that your FSVP system remains effective, up-to-date, and compliant with FDA expectations. After this, we will open the floor for a Q&A session where you will have the opportunity to ask questions and clarify any points about implementation or documentation. And as part of this training, you'll also gain access to a free 90-day trial of the FSVP compliance management software designed to help automate compliance schedules, track supplier verification activities, and maintain complete audit-ready records. And finally, upon completion of this familiarization training, participants will receive a training certificate. To ensure that you receive your certificate, please make sure you have filled out the free certification familiarization training sign-up form that we shared with you in the chat box. On the screen, you'll see a sample of the familiarization certificate that you will receive upon completing each session. With that, let's move forward to our training session where we will be working directly with the FSVP Compliance Management System software. So let's start by going over the description of the FSVP Section 1.501 Products Program. Please take a look at the description on the screen. It says, for FSVP Products Program, its purpose is to define imported foods subject to FSVP and outlines exemptions or modified requirements. For the general requirement, it states that all imported food for U.S. consumption is subject to FSVP unless exempt. Importers must ensure suppliers produce food that first meet U.S. food safety standards, provides equivalent public health protection as U.S. preventive controls or produce safety, and is not adulterated or misbranded, including allergen labeling. Section 3, Foods Covered. It applies to all imported food, ingredients, animal feed, and dietary supplements unless exempt under 21 CFR Part 111. For foods exempt, it includes food for personal use, food imported for further processing in U.S. facilities under preventive controls, alcoholic beverages and related ingredients, food for research or evaluation, food for re-export and not consumed in the U.S., juice and seafood under HACCP 21 CFR 120 and 123, low acid canned foods under 21 CFR 113 when limited to microbiological hazards, and food from FDA recognized equivalent systems like Canada, New Zealand, and Australia. For modified requirements, reduced FSVP obligations may apply to very small importers or suppliers based on their annual sales, certain small foreign suppliers, specified alcoholic beverages, or some lower risk products. For compliance responsibilities, it is the responsibility of the compliance department to determine whether each food is subject to or exempt from FSVP and document the basis. And they should implement an FSVP program including hazard analysis, supplier evaluation or approval, verification activities, and corrective actions. And finally, maintain records demonstrating compliance per sections 1.502 to 1.512. So you may update or edit the description as needed to reflect any revisions to the FSVP requirements in the future. To implement this program, we have created a list of action items in the Compliance tab. So this section helps the importer or the designated FSVP qualified individual or QI to stay organized by scheduling tasks according to frequency, whether it's daily, weekly, quarterly, and semi-annual activities. So here are some examples of your compliance action items or the tasks that you need to perform as the importer or as the FSVP QI. First is to review import documentation, entry records, and supplier lot traceability for each shipment. Confirm products are covered under FSVP scope and supplier approval. Next is to check if imported item is FSVP covered or exempt, like juice, seafood under HACCP or re-export items. Review labeling, certificate of analysis, and allergen declarations before product release. Notify the FSQA or procurement of any import irregularities like an approved supplier or missing documentation. Update supplier master list for any new or modified FSVP suppliers. Conduct sampling review of import records for completeness, like shipment documents, hazard analysis, or supplier approval. Validate that all new imported ingredients or products have been screened for FSVP applicability. Audit selected imported items for allergen and labeling accuracy. Ensure resolution and documentation of any supplier-related nonconformances. And for your quarterly action items, this includes reviewing your supplier food safety performance, including certificate of analysis, complaint trends, and inspection outcomes, verifying implementation of hazard analysis, supplier evaluation, and verification activities per sections 1.504 to 1.508, confirm continued eligibility for any exemptions or modified FSVP requirements, update FSVP program manual and supplier documentation for any regulatory or operational changes, and check FDA import alert database for any supplier or product listed under detention without physical examination or DWPE. And for your semi-annual or biannual action items, this includes conducting documented re-evaluation of all approved foreign suppliers' compliance with food safety regulations and FSVP requirements, confirm continued recognition of countries under equivalent food safety systems like Canada, New Zealand, and Australia, and conduct refresher training for FSVP team members and document training completion. Finally, present FSVP compliance summary and risk status to top management for review and improvement planning. So basically, this serves as your checklist of your compliance activities that the importer or the FSVP QI needs to perform. You can either add your own compliance action items or we can provide the required activities for you to perform. To complete these activities, we've also provided work instructions for each action item. So let's take one as an example to complete the action item, which states that review, import documentation, entry records, and supplier lot traceability for each shipment. Confirm products are covered under FSVP scope and supplier approval. So let's click on the view option here to see the work instructions to complete this activity. So to complete this activity, these are your compliance activities that you need to perform. First is to collect import documentation and entry records. So this involves gathering all import-related records for each shipment, including commercial invoices, bills of lading, customs entries, and packing list. The artifacts or records that you need to carry out this activity are import entry logs, commercial invoice, bill of lading, and packing list. Next is to verify supplier lot traceability. You can do this by confirming that each shipment can be traced to the approved supplier lot, ensuring the ability to identify, isolate, and recall products if necessary. So the artifacts and records involved in this phase is the supplier lot traceability records, as well as the supplier shipping documents and FSVP lot mapping form. Next step is to confirm FSVP coverage of imported products. You can do this by checking that all imported products fall under FSVP scope and are not exempt or subject to modified requirements unless properly documented. You can use the FSVP product list or exemption or modified requirements records or the QI verification checklist. Next step is to validate supplier approval status. So this can be performed by ensuring that the supplier for each shipment is listed as an approved foreign supplier and has completed all required evaluations and verifications. Artifacts or records that you need to complete are approved supplier list, supplier evaluation forms, or QI sign off on supplier approval. Next step is to document findings and discrepancies. So you will record any discrepancies in import documentation, FSVP coverage, or supplier approval, and initiate corrective actions as needed. The artifacts or records needed are discrepancy report, corrective actions request or CAR, and follow-up verification records. Then finally, the last step is to maintain records for audit and inspection. So to carry out this activity, you need to file all reviewed import documentation, lot traceability records, and verification outcomes in the FSVP record system to ensure traceability and readiness for FDA inspection. So you need the FSVP import documentation file or the document control index and the record retention lag. So these are your work instruction to carry out or to perform this specific action item to review the import documentation, entry records, and supplier lot traceability for each shipment. Now, to complete this specific action item, you need to upload supporting evidence or evidence of compliance, which includes your artifacts, records, or logs. For this same action item, compliance can be demonstrated by uploading, let's say, the approved supplier list. So let's view a sample of the approved supplier list here as your supporting evidence. So this document demonstrates compliance by documenting that each supplier has been evaluated and approved under FSVP, and then each imported product is covered under the FSVP scope. The import entry records and lot traceability have been reviewed for each shipment, and the FSVP QI has verified and recorded supplier approval and compliance status. So it's just one of the um, logs, records, or artifacts that you can provide to provide evidence of compliance for this specific action item. Now your aim is to complete this all of these action items here and convert the no's to yes, so that you are confident that you are compliant with the FSBP requirements. Next, let's go over to the annual review tab, which also serves as your gap assessment tool. So this tab is designed as an internal audit checklist in the form of a questionnaire aligned with the FSVP requirements under 21 CFR Part 1 Subpart L. It lists all required annual review items to help you maintain compliance with the FSVP requirements. For the FSVP products program, your annual review or internal audit may include questions such as, have all imported products been reviewed to confirm whether they are covered under FSVP or exempt? Is documentation available supporting exemption or modified requirement status for applicable products? Has the FSVP product list been updated within the past 12 months? Does each imported food have a corresponding FSVP record on file or file? And then, have all foreign suppliers been evaluated and approved before importation? Does each approved supplier have a documented hazard analysis addressing relevant food safety hazards? Have supplier performance and compliance, like FDA history, audits, or certificate of analysis, been reviewed within the last year? Have suppliers due for reevaluation, like for 3-year cycle or triggered by changes, been reviewed and documented? Are verification activities like sampling, COA review, or supplier audits conducted as defined in the FSVP plan? Are verification results documented and reviewed by the FSVP QI? Have all corrective actions been implemented and verified for supplier nonconformances? Are import entries cross-checked with the current list of approved suppliers? Are imported products verified to be free from adulteration or misbranding? Are allergen declarations and US labeling requirements verified before market release? Are labeling verification records maintained for each imported batch or shipment? Are all FSVP records like hazard analysis, supplier approval, or verification maintained for at least 2 years? Are FSVP records securely stored and easily retrievable for FDA inspection? Have all FSVP documents been reviewed and updated to reflect current operations and supplier status? Has an annual management review of the FSVP program been conducted and documented? And has the FSVP QI and relevant staff received current training or competency verification within the past 12 months? So these are your annual review questionnaires to make sure that you are compliant with the FSVP requirement. Now, to show compliance or to guide you in complying this specific action item, provided also here are your work instruction. So let's say, let's pick the question, does each imported food have a corresponding FSVP record or file? To perform this activity, so you need to carry out these steps, first is to identify your imported products. You can do this by using the FSVP product list to identify that all current imported food products are on the list. And then you also need to ensure the list includes product name, SKU, supplier, country of origin, and FSVP status, whether they are covered, exempt, or modified. The record or artifact that you will be needing in this step is the FSVP product list. For step 2, you need to create or update FSVP record or file. For each imported product, you need to maintain a dedicated record or file that includes the following. First, the product identification, like the product name, SKU, and the supplier. Then the FSVP classification, whether they are covered, exempt, or modified. In any supporting documentation like supplier statements, certificates, or FDA correspondence, and then risk assessment documentation if applicable, and record of verification and approval with the reviewer name, date, and signature. The records need to be completed are the FSVP product file or the electronic record. For step 3, it involves verifying the completeness. So you can perform this by confirming that each product's FSVP record or file contains the following: all required documentation supporting FSVP compliance or exemption, evidence of annual review and updates, and approval signatures from regulatory affairs or your QA manager. You also need to flag any missing or incomplete records and initiate corrective action. So the record involved in this step is your FSVP record verification checklist. Next is your approval. So this can be done by submitting the FSVP record or file for regulatory affairs or QA manager approval, and then the manager verifies completeness, signs, and dates the record. The record involved here is your FSVP record approval lag. And finally, the record retention. So you can do this by maintaining all FSVP records or files for a minimum of 2 years after import or as required by corporate policy. And you should ensure that all records are retrievable for internal audits or FDA inspections. Now, to show compliance, you should upload records like the FSVP product list, which I have uploaded here. So this document serves as your proof that each imported food has a corresponding and verified FSVP record on file. It also ensures full traceability, documentation control, and compliance with FDA's FSVP record keeping requirements. So this is a simple functionality that helps you measure compliance progress while also preparing your products and facility for a potential FDA inspection or audit. Now let's move on to our Q&A session. Please feel free to ask any questions about today's topic. You can type them in the chat box, or you could also email them to hello@consultareinc.com. Any questions from the group regarding today's training? You may also schedule a one-on-one FSVP class for personalized support with your specific FSVP requirements. Pumili ng wika. Arnel asked what is pumili ng wika. Actually, it's a default setting of the system language. So you can choose any language of your preference depending on which language you understand. So the primary languages are here. So you have here the Arabic, Chinese, French. Pumili ng wika is a Filipino counterpart for choose your language. So for this specific training, we are using English as a system language. Does it answer your question, Arnel? Thank you. Any questions from the team? If then, I think that ends our presentation today, our training. Thank you so much for attending the FSVP 1.501 Products Program. Your training certificates will be sent directly to your registered email addresses. We also invite you to join us again next week as we discuss another topic on FSVP program. We also invite you to join our other free certification familiarization training sessions held every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday at 11 a.m. and 2 p.m. Topics include FSSC 22000, SQF and BRCGS certification, FDA Food Code, and 21 CFR Parts 117 and 111, or CGMP for human food and dietary supplements. For those who have not filled up the free certification familiarization sign up form, please feel free to do so and specify if you wish to get your 90-day free software. If you have any questions, clarifications, or feedback regarding today's training, please don't hesitate to reach out to us at hello@consultareinc.com. Thank you for your participation in today's training, and we wish you a pleasant day ahead.